Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's BIZZARRO. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs. You can also find me personally on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If anyone's out there trying to find me, you can find me out there. With that being said, I'm going to jump right into it, guys. I have John Smitty from Nutra Marketers out of Traverse City, Michigan. I think I said it right. And how are you doing today, John?
Doing good, my friend. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
All right, let's, not Robin Hood, pun intended, but let's talk about your life. Let's talk about you as an entrepreneur, your journey from Little John, as in Robin Hood would say, Little John, up to Big John, which would be a different reference. But let's talk about your story, your ventures, because I'm really fascinated because the niche you found yourself in, what you do specifically, and how it correlates to sort of your, what I'll call visionary thread of your life that's weaving the quilt of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I want to focus on that too, because I've already understood it based on who you are, what you do. For the audience, I know a lot of you do 75 hard with me out there. We participate in that together. We've already talked about 75 hard. When we get right to the point and we know someone does 75 hard within 10 minutes of a conversation, business is about to be done. So
yeah, for sure.
So the mic is yours, John. I'd love to hear your story.
Cool. Well, thanks. Yeah. How far do you want me to go back?
All the way back to little baby John.
We go back to little baby John was born in Detroit, Michigan, a long, long time ago. And yeah, I guess I would skip up to, if we're talking from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I would probably skip up to my first little venture. I was about, 10. I think the first time I tried my own business, and I lived in this neighborhood and most of the kids' parents were pretty strict. I was the only kid. I came from kind of I'd say edgy family, kind of a rough family. I didn't have a lot of supervision. My parents had their own things going on and I kind of just did what I wanted to do. And I was the only kid that was allowed to leave the subdivision on a bike. And we had about a mile away, we had a rock shop. And all the kids in the subdivision wanted rocks from this rock shop, but they could only get them if their parents took them there, which didn't happen very frequently. So I decided I would just start riding my bike up to this rock shop and buying rocks with my allowance money that I was earning. And I would bring the rocks back and I'd turn my bedroom into like a retail outlet, basically like a little shop. And I would invite the kids in my neighborhood in. They could shop the rocks. I'd have I'd sell them for more than I paid for them. And I made money that way. That was probably my first venture. So I would say I started in selling rocks.
There are some people that do, for sure, and take it all the way, sell big rocks.
Yeah, absolutely. Fast forward that into my 20s, I painted all through high school. I painted through college. And then in my 20s, I had a painting company, but I also had started a music career by this time. So I was writing music, recording music, and performing music. And I also had this painting company, and I landed an opportunity to go on Vans Warped Tour with a Skull Candy sponsorship. It was a huge opportunity for me as far as my music career was concerned. And so what I did was I had this little painting business that I started. So I would sell jobs throughout the year so that I would have work for my crew lined up, and my brother would run that crew, and I would go tour my music and be gone for months at a time. So I did that I think I was on Warped Tour for 3 years consecutively. And then I found out that my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. So I was going to become a dad for the first time. And I really started analyzing, the music career, where it was taking me. I was on the road all the time. I wasn't making anything for money. I didn't want to be a painter my whole life. I knew that, or run a painting company. But I really liked what I was doing for Skull Candy with my music, which was marketing, right? I was promoting their products on stage. My literal job was to promote Skull Candy during my performance, hand out their headphones, talk about the brand. When I wasn't performing, I was going through the Warped Tour crowds, handing out merch and free things from Skull Candy and just trying to get kids pumped about Skull Candy. So I thought, man, if I could do that for other companies, that would be great. And this was right when Facebook was starting to come out. So I did. I started messing around with Facebook. I came home. I worked my painting company. I had a new band I started. We were just performing locally. I was making some extra money doing that. And I was promoting the band through Facebook. And I got approached by a local magazine, NM3 magazine, and they asked if I would help them with theirs. And I ended up doing that for them. And then I also ended up selling ads for them as well. So I started to learn like really quickly when I was selling print ads that if the ads, if I sold like an insurance company and their ads weren't bringing them any new business, they would pull their ads. So my retention would suck. And I was trying to build this like residual income through my ad sales. So I just started really studying first it was how to write great copy for ads. Then it became how to develop great offers. So I started realizing as I'm writing copy, well, it doesn't matter how how good the copy is if the offer stinks. So I did that for about 2 years. And then I applied for a job with a local CBS and Fox affiliate TV station, got the job as a sales rep for them. And it was the same thing, only it was TV. I was creating television ads or selling television ads. And if the ads didn't convert for my clients, they would say, TV doesn't work. We want to terminate our contract with you. And so I got really highly involved in the creation of those ads from a strategy level, which it turns out that strategy kind of became my new art form as I got further and further away from music. So I would start to consult my clients at a strategy level on their ads. And then we would bleed that down into a really good offer. And then I would personally write the script for their TV commercial. I would personally work with our creative team. I would be on site at the shoots, at the video shoots, which most sales reps in that industry don't do that. They just sell you spots. They're selling ratings and trying to get you visibility on the TV channels during different shows. But I just got really involved. And from there, I started studying more marketing because it came very apparent to me that marketing was not advertising. Like marketing actually is the management process of taking a new product from concept to customer place, right? And everything that is involved with that. So I hired a guy, Richard Borston. He's got a couple books out. He's a pretty well-known copywriter. Paid him a whole lot of money to work with me directly and teach me really good strategic copywriting. I took every J. Abraham course that I could. I read every book that I could. I took many other courses. And the more I was consulting my clients and the better their ads were doing and the better sales rep I was becoming for the station, I actually ended up applying for a national sales rep job and they turned me down on it. And when they did that, I went, it's time to go off on my own. So I took my client roster. I started a marketing agency, my first agency, Lead Plan Marketing, and took off. I mean, it took off from there. So we were doing local digital ads and SEO and stuff like that, but at a local level. And one day I had a guy walk into my office who lived in the same town I do in the summertime and then lived in Los Angeles in the wintertime. Pretty typical for the area I live in. It's a nice resort beach town off of Lake Michigan. And he says, hey, I just bought this brand out of Russia. It's a pretty good sized brand. I need to get it really competitive here in the US. I need national SEO work done. He had some other problems too. And I said, I don't think we're ready for that. We're a local agency. I don't think we can help you yet. And he actually was really surprised, thanked me for the honesty and said, listen, he said, most agencies would have just taken my money. So I appreciate the honesty. I'm going to come back in a year. And if you're ready to work with me, then we'll work together. And if not, then we won't. So year later, he came back. I had a bigger team. I had some people on my team that had some national SEO experience and we took him on. We did really well with that brand. We actually helped him launch a second brand. We did well with that brand. And through working with him, I started to meet other people in the supplement industry. And supplements always kind of were attractive to me. I mean, I knew a little bit about them because I am somebody who works out and takes care of my health. And my dad was into bodybuilding for a time when I was a kid. And he would always have these different protein supplements he was taking and BCAAs and amino acids. And so I was kind of intrigued by it even as a kid. And I just started to meet more people in the industry. And I always say that the supplement industry is it's a really big business, but it's a pretty small community. And as word traveled, we started getting more and more supplement brand clients. So over the years, it turned into just about our entire client roster was supplement brands. And so I said, I think that we just need to go all in on this niche. We rebranded to Nutra Marketers, and the rest is history. So that's kind of the story on how I landed where I'm at today.
Let's go back to music first, because obviously we talked a little bit in the pre-episode or pre-recording about football, your son being an athlete, so on and so forth, athletics, you being a bodybuilder or interested in those type of activities, your dad being a bodybuilder, but same idea, interested in maintaining a decent physique and strength. And I think a lot of people see it as shallow or whatever, but I think on the manly side of things, if it's truly anchored, it's actually to protect your family and support your family and longevity if it's really anchored. So, I mean, just be careful of judgment, guys, because sometimes I get it and I'm just like, what you don't realize is that I'm 45 years old. I need to be as strong as possible to protect my family. That's the goal there. And if I'm traveling or whatever, I need to be strong enough to protect myself in whatever way I can to give myself any advantage possible to do so. And not everyone understands it, but if you start doing business internationally, you start traveling with your family internationally, you start having things in life, earning things, whether you like it or not, you become a target, especially as an American. We don't hide it very well. So even when we
For
try.
sure.
So,
What it is for me, Justin, more than anything, I started training really hard about the time that I was doing television advertising. My son was really little, and I was very, very motivated to build something. And I didn't know exactly what. At the time, it was, I just want to be the best media consultant and sales rep I can be at the station. And I was training and training my body because it was helping me train my mind. And a lot of people don't look at exercise that way, but when you have the mentality to push yourself through a 13-mile run, as one example, which I was doing a lot of at the time in hill sprints, it really builds that brain muscle and that like mental strength for you to be able to push through business challenges that you're going to run into. And, I didn't know at the time I was going to launch an agency and it was going to turn into what it is today. And I didn't know the challenges that I was going to run into. But if I wasn't constantly training my mind and making it stronger and stronger, there's no way I could have made it through a lot of the challenges I had to face. So the working out side of it really for me is more mental than it is how I look. Of course, we always want to look great, but just, making ourselves do hard things every day makes it easier when we really have to face challenges and push through them.
yeah. And anyone who's young, who's listening in, or anyone who's old, again, it's the whole, when's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago? When's the next time right now? And same with working out or same with exercise or whatever, even if it's just start by walking, even if it's just to your mailbox or whatever it is, to just start moving and getting some routine. Those things are important. But I think my point being, more so than anything, is distance happens over years. And when we have children and we have businesses and jobs, years go by a little bit faster. And in those years, if you aren't anchored in some sort of healthy regiment, there's a lot of distance gained in life all the way around by those who do anchor it. I'm not saying that's always true. I think we see people with more money than others. I think we see people with more time than others or more vacations than others. But when I'm talking about what health does is it brings a natural balance to all of those things in your family when you eat and train and live in a healthy stance first. Is it hard to get into in a new relationship or when you have a new family and there's also stepkids involved? Yeah, the routine is hard. It may take a little bit. It may take 18 months before you guys can, 2 years before you as a male or as a female can help align the family or whatever situation you go in to be healthier. But it starts with just your actions. That's the number one thing. All you have to do is do it yourself. You don't have to convince everyone else to do it. That's not how things actually lead in families either.
Yeah.
Leadership is often mimicked, including the family. So I just want to emphasize that because I get those questions a lot, like 75 hard. And listen, I have my ebbs and flows, and I go through periods where I have to readjust to my periods of life, and my eating and my exercise goes a little bit off. But as I start to figure it out or get comfortable in my situation, I don't want to use the word comfortable, but I get secure and understanding, you can build routines, guys. And life changes. I've been through some pretty major life changes recently. So
Mm.
it's just getting back on the horse, really, for lack of a better term. I did grow up on a farm.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
will say this. The reason is by the time you get into your 40s, 50s, 60s, where everyone else has been in sort of an autopilot of the realities of the world and living in the reality of the world, the individuals who live in health and also add in routine, show it to their kids, show it to their environment, they're raising the water around them. You will see that just by the nature of it. It doesn't mean they have lots of money or flashy cars. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying an overall raising of humanity around them and in their family. That's where I'm going to leave that for everyone. We can talk a little bit more about that in the episode, but first I want to get into another question. Let's talk about music specifically. Why music amongst all of you obviously have all this athletics, all this athletic interest in you. And then here's this thing where it's kind of part of your story and doesn't quite make sense in all of it other than it led to the radio. But where did music start for you? So let's anchor that and like put the pieces together there.
Oh man, music started for me when I was just a little kid. It started in church. My family, my mom, anyways, was pretty religious and took us to church every Sunday. And I was always singing, and the church took notice to my singing. And I sang for the church. And I remember at one point, my mom put together this little tour for me of like retirement homes. And she took me around at Christmas time and I sang at I don't even know how many different retirement homes. And from then on, I was just always singing. I was always writing music. I was always, like I always say, I'm not a guitar player, but I've learned to play guitar. I wouldn't call myself a guitar player, but I know enough. I can play songs. I'm not great, but I just sing with piano and stuff like that. And so when I got to being a teenager, I fell in with other friends that were into the same thing. And I was just in a group that was writing music and recording music. And I had a friend that used to throw these big parties when we were teenagers in his basement. His mom would actually go get a hotel and let us just throw these massive parties. And he would have me and my friends perform there. And that was like my first experience outside of church and in I guess the retirement homes, that performing to crowds like that anyways, that were like partying. And then from there, it was performing at bars and nightclubs. And then it was opening up for national acts, clubs around the country. And then it was Vans Warped Tour. I did a couple other tours inside Vans Warped Tour. Yeah, that's kind of, I think really I'm a creative person by nature. I think music was one outlet for me for a long time. I also love to write. I have a book out actually that's published, Stop Guessing, Start Marketing. The thing that really attracts me to marketing is the strategic planning, like the strategy side of it, because I can get really high level creative on how we're going to walk somebody through a customer journey into a purchase, everything that's going to happen along the way. That's what really excited me when I started to learn about marketing and like, oh, so advertising just fits into this at this one intersection. There's like so much more that has to happen before that happens. And then there's so much more that has to happen after that ad happens. Right. So, I like I said earlier, I kind of transitioned my creative over to marketing from music. And I don't really do much with music anymore. I secretly have a catalog of songs I've been writing for like 2 or 3 years, but I haven't really recorded any, not at a recording studio. I don't know if I ever will. I just like to write them, but yeah, that's pretty much my music
Yeah,
story.
I mean, it translated, right? It translated into advertising. It's translated into because a song in many ways is like copywriting. You're trying to say something in a short amount of time
Oh, yeah,
and get
absolutely.
a story across to that image or to that group, or an image to that group visually through words. And so I appreciate it for sure. I get the lineage, and I wanted to tie it together because I think it has a lot to do with this just for everyone. And whether it's sports or it's music, we shouldn't deter our kids or just underutilize or underexpose or under push, whatever the term is that I'm not getting right now, but their potential. Okay. Because when I had a soccer coach that pushed me beyond my potential, beyond where my family could push me, honestly, it was a big deal, and then that led to teachers who pushed me beyond where my family or the people around me could push me. And it's not that I'm putting anyone down. It's just we're talking about the elevation of our legacy and of humanity and what we give back. And for the podcast, for me, that's part of it, right? This is me grabbing everyone's story in a flash frame of time. Sometimes I do multiple episodes, so you hear multiple flash frames of time, but at least a little more of their journey. But the point of it is so these stories help for a long time. Hopefully, business will change for sure, but food is food. It's the same thing. Sometimes our longevity and our legacy is tied to how we're motivated. That's usually something anchored in our youth. Me, it was soccer, leadership, being able to work in teams, being able to be coachable in some ways, being able to know that I always don't know enough, being always knowing that I can't get it all done and there's no perfection unless it's in team environments, things like that. And I think they're important. That's why I asked about the music, just to take it full circle for everyone. I know I zigzagged a little bit, maybe lost everyone on my mental journey there. But the point being that let's talk a little bit about writing. Let's talk about translating it, the desire to do it, self-teaching yourself, seeking a mentor to teach you to be a better copywriter, as you said. Talk to me about the drive there. Let's talk about that a little bit in detail, because that is quite a massive mentor to have or to recruit. Let's talk about that all in sort of one conversation.
Sure. Yeah, the copywriting part it started at the magazine that I was working at, NM3 magazine, like, because we had to have really strong copywriting on those ads. And as much as I love the creative people that I was working with, everybody's really good at their respective job than what we're doing, right? So like a graphic designer is really good at making an ad look great visually. But when you're working at a small magazine like the one I was at, where the graphic designer is also doing the copywriting, he doesn't really think in like a sales mind. And he just wants something that's going to, he's really more focused on the visual aesthetic of that ad. And so I took that upon myself because I did understand sales and I did understand what my clients were trying to do with their ads. I didn't really understand a lot of copywriting yet. And taking like a very large story or idea and boiling that down into one or two lines was something that I had to get really good at. So I ended up hiring that guy that I spoke of earlier, Richard Boriston. We worked together for quite a while, actually, because he was still with me when I was at the TV station. And he actually helped coach me into my agency. So we put together actually a plan to sell enough clients into my agency before I left the station so that my bills would be paid. Because I took a huge leap of faith when I started this agency. I had a family. I had a very well-paying job. I had health benefits, paid time off, bonuses. And I left all that behind to go off on my own with this. And it took a long time before I really started making any real money. There's a lot of things that happen along the way, but back to the copywriting, it was just really important that I was able to create titles and compelling calls to action, right? If I could do those two things, the ad was going to be much more effective. But again, we also had to have a really good offer. And if, a furniture store is having a big sale, I would always say, like, okay, if we're going to get them in, how can we get them in the store with the ad? That's the first thing. What kind of an offer makes sense? But then once we get them into the store, what else can you sell them? Right? Like if we're gonna bring them in on a mattress sale, you guys really should have a plan on how you're going to sell them the bed set to go with the mattress and the light stands and the lamps and the comforter. And so I was working with my clients in that kind of a capacity so that they would be able to see that their average order value was much higher than their customer acquisition cost. So we would literally dial in, like, how much money do you want to make off of this ad? Like, how much is each purchase worth? If we sold X amount, how much would that be? Okay, so we're shooting to make, I don't know, we're shooting to make $25,000 off this ad campaign. How much are you willing to spend to make $25,000? Are you willing to spend 2,000, 3,000? Sure, okay, we'll spend $3,000. Right? So I was really engineering every aspect of what we were doing, which was in the end generating great results for my clients who were going, wow, this guy not only came in and created a great ad for us that spoke to the audience that we were actually trying to speak to, but he showed us how we could sell even more than just off of that initial mattress offer. And that's where I became more valuable as a consultant.
I love this. I think it's hugely important from the perspective of understanding how all the little pieces of your life have sort of come together in the way that they have for you in particular, but for the success that you've had. So I'm going to target this now, and then I'll ask more questions around it, but let's target Nutra marketers. Okay. So we've talked a lot about radio and music and copywriting, and we're on here talking about Nutra marketers. So let's talk about that transition specifically. Let's talk about where it is now. Let's talk about the difference between marketing nutrition-based products or supplement-based products, or supplements, however we want to call this, nutritional products. All of these categories would define this. And so let's talk about it, because it is different than food, and it is different than beverage, and it is different than the furniture store we just talked about. So let's dive into this, because I want to highlight this, because a niche like this, specifically where you are, is unique to take all this giant skills that you could apply to any industry that we just talked about and established. And now you're applying it to nutrition, specifically for the health and growth of the human being. And you could argue it's physically, but really when we do physical activity like we're talking about, it eventually leads to mental, emotional, and hopefully spiritual growth as well if you're doing it properly. Yeah. So go ahead.
So when we're talking about marketing nutritional products or supplements, just like any sort of food, this is an ingestible product. Because of that, everything has to be based on credibility. Trust building is like the main pillar that we focus on when we're building brands, whether we're starting a brand from scratch and launching it for the first time, or we're helping a company through a mid-sized scale up. We have to have good trust and credibility. I've worked with companies that were doing really good revenue. One in particular was a vein surgeon. They came to us, they were doing about $40,000 a month in sales, and they just hit a wall. And they're like, we need to scale this up. They were on Amazon specifically. They're like, we need to scale this up. We want to be making 100,000 in revenue. And I went through a month, and I went through and I analyzed everything. And I said, why isn't the doctor on any of this? Like, I'm not going to say his name, but it's your brand and you're a surgeon and a physician. Like, let's put your face on this. I think it's a credibility issue. I think that we can increase conversion rates by increasing the awareness of why these products were developed and who they were developed by. And so we did that. We leaned into that. We did a whole bunch of creative work, photo shoots. I mean, we put his face on everything and his name on everything. And some physicians are a little bit leery of that because they don't want their patients to feel like they're just trying to, sell them their stuff. And, but most physicians that I work with that have their own brands created them for the right reasons. They couldn't find products that they were really comfortable giving to their patients. So those are really the best products that you can get are coming from your physician. You can trust that. And we did that and we promoted with his face for, I think it was around 6 months before they shot up over 100,000 in monthly revenue. The following year, they were up over 200,000 in monthly revenue. So that trust and credibility piece in this business is numero uno. The other thing that you have to be able to do is differentiate yourself. And it's the same in any business. I mean, if you have a food truck, it's the same thing, right? You got to differentiate. You got to come up with a really good concept. When you're marketing supplements, same thing. If you're going to have a hydration product, say electrolyte formula, what is it about your formula that's going to make it different than anything else that's on the market right now? Because we all know there's tons of hydration supplements and electrolyte supplements out there, starting with Gatorade, which we all know and can easily go purchase. So why should I go online to your website if you're not even in retail and you're selling direct to consumer through your website or on Amazon or TikTok shop or wherever it may be? Why should I search out your product and buy it? And so we call that telling the story within the formula, or the story within the formula. And I actually got that from my days at TV because our CEO at the station would pull us into these quarterly meetings, and he would ask us to sell him a rating point and tell me the story in the rating. And it was really like, okay, well, this rating comes from the Ellen DeGeneres show, and she gets it because of this. And you really have to be able to sell that show to the customer. And it was the same thing when we got into supplements. Okay, this formula has vitamin D, calcium, iron, potassium, magnesium, zinc, and chloride. And I'm just kind of spitballing this as I talk, but maybe in this case, the vitamin D actually works synergistically with the magnesium to actually help relieve muscle soreness that you had from your workout that you're trying to hydrate from because you lost so many electrolytes. Maybe that would be one example of what a unique selling proposition would be. Whatever it is, a big one that's happening right now in supplements is nanotechnology. And this is one that I really love because they're breaking molecules down so that we get more bioavailability, higher absorption rates from the supplements that we're taking. Where now when you take a supplement, on average, you're absorbing about 10% of the nutrients. With nanotechnology, you're absorbing as much as 60% of the nutrients, which is a huge unique selling proposition, right? So if you're looking to start a supplement brand, I would say you can take just about any liquid supplement right now that's out there and turn it into a nanotechnology supplement and have an instant unique selling proposition. So we need to be able to tell that story effectively. We need to be able to build quick credibility. However that may be, if you're not a physician or a doctor, maybe it's the testing that you did, maybe it's clinical trials that you did, maybe it's that you source the highest quality ingredients, things like that. You know, you're somebody who maybe you're not a doctor, maybe you're not a nutritionist, but you're just somebody who has spent years dealing with a very specific problem, like you've had issues with being an insomniac. You couldn't ever sleep. So you started experimenting with different ingredients that would help you. You found this combination worked really great, and you created a formula because you wanted to spread that out to everybody else that was suffering with that issue and couldn't find a real solution to it. So once you have all those things in place, then it's time to bring it to market. Obviously, you want to package that product so that it encompasses everything that we discovered along the way of creating it. So if I step back to, I talked earlier about the differences between marketing and advertising, and I talk about this in my book too. So marketing, by definition, is the management process of taking a product, in this case, from concept to customer place, right? So it involves 4 pillars: development of the product itself. So in supplements, that's going into formulation, formulating that great product that's going to be different than anything else. From there, it's price positioning, making sure that you've done market research so that you're going to effectively be able to position this product against your competitors from a pricing standpoint and be able to sell it. And there's a lot I could talk about just that for days. From there, it's delivering it to customer place. So you want to have a place where you deliver that product and you're able to get it in front of a lot of people at one time. You need a hungry audience. Gatorade did this really, really well when they first started. They were selling to athletes, and they knew, kind of like Skull Candy, they knew they needed a thirsty audience. And they went, where can we get our customer to the thirstiest people, or our product to the thirstiest people on the planet? And they ended up partnering with marathons and handing out Gatorades at the end to the racers that were coming through. Just like Skull Candy had guys like me giving their headphones out to teenagers. I mean, every teenager we know has a set of headphones on about 90% of the time. And then from there, it's the promotion phase. Now we're into the advertising side of it, right? So in the supplement world, when you start a supplement brand, there's really only a few places that you can sell the product because you're not going to be into retail yet. That's something you're going to have to work up to. So usually people want to start on their website, which is a bad idea, and I could explain why. Another place that we highly recommend is to start by launching your product on Amazon first. Amazon holds instant credibility with their customers. We also know there's just over $33 million a day in supplement sales on that platform. So we know people are going there with a high buyer's intent to purchase supplements, just a matter of making sure you're showing up in the right searches and getting that conversion. But then in supplements, if we look at a buyer's journey of awareness, consideration, decision, the journey that we all take to a purchase, in supplements, there's actually an extra step in that process. So in a supplement buyer's journey, it goes awareness, consideration, decision, retention. Because in this world, subscribe and save is the name of the game. And it may be like that. And for those of you who are listening that have food businesses, it may be like that in your business too, depending on what you're selling. But when we look at customer lifetime value, how much each customer is going to spend with us over that lifetime in our business, that subscribe and save and retention is really the name of the game. The more we can increase those subscribe and save rates, the higher the LTV, the customer lifetime value, is going to be.
Let's go over that, because I think in supplements, it's very important in nutrition and food. People get tired of stuff and whatever, but I think in this space, one, there's a lot of innovation that takes place. Two, flavors are constantly new, products are constantly new. But let's talk about this lifetime value on the subscription model, because I think it's important for everyone to understand truly what this is, and I think the reason supplement companies started this, and it eventually ended into when we started doing food direct to consumers, because of nutrition-based companies or nutrition-based individuals or in that space that wanted to do meals to homes for people working out and do another layer of nutritional value. Just to be totally honest with everyone, the at-home delivery boom, everyone thinks it was the consumer or whatever normal. Way before that ever happened, at least when I was doing food and we took it on as a co-packing to send into directly into homes, it started in the workout space, the CrossFit, the bodybuilding, the gym space. And this is CrossFit before CrossFit is what it is now. This is when it was still just some gyms running around before there was even a CrossFit Games, just so everyone's aware, in California. And things like that are some of the smaller brands that were coming up in nutrition space that wanted to see if they could get into the food space also. So there was a lot of that. And I do want to anchor that. That's why I'm asking the question, because the one is from the other. And I'll just say this so everyone knows. Marriott was a food company first. Roy Rogers, Big Boys, Howard Johnson, they were a food family first. Marriott Hotel model and why it's successful is it's built on a food franchising model, not a model based on hotels. So the ability to move quickly and franchise quickly has everything to do with food. And also Marriott learned a lot being in the airline catering business, because you produced the food, got it to the plane quickly, and if you were late, you were fined every minute you were late. So that helped them be way more efficient in their businesses by having that business in their beginnings, because they had to be on time, they had to be fast, and they had to serve high-level elite food on airplanes on time, or they were getting fined by the airlines. No different than being late for your window at Walmart if you're doing delivery or putting product there. But that's the thing. That's why I asked this question. That's why I think it's important, because there is underlying lessons there. And for entrepreneurs, everyone always thinks there's this bright moment or this bright idea that happens, or I hit my head on the toilet and the flux capacitor comes out and, here you go, time travel's invented. No, it still took Doc Brown 30 years before he created the DeLorean. It's the same model here. We have ideas, we hit our head, we deal with things, but in life, those little lessons long term could lead to something greater. So, anyway, let's talk about this subscription model.
Sure. Usually, I guess, to start at the beginning of that buyer's journey, again, somebody becomes aware that they have a problem. They, through their research, become aware of your product. They click on it. They now go into consideration. They're now considering your product, which 97% of those people that click your ad for the first time aren't going to take any kind of action the first time they hit your website or your landing page. That's a pretty common statistic. And then, so from there, it's your job to pull them into decisions. So how do you do that? You got to warm up that cold traffic. We're going to try to get that first purchase from this new customer, right? We're going to have retargeting ads, bringing them back to the website with special offers, trying to pull them a decision. We're going to have retargeting ads that are built around credibility, maybe with influencers talking about the product and how great it was, or if a physician formulated it, the physician's talking about it too. And there's probably going to be different retargeting ads that are designed to do that. We're going to get them back to the website and offer them a discount code, put in your email, get 15% off your first purchase. They're going to sign up for that. We're going to take them through a welcome series, a post-purchase education series, and then offer an exclusive deal there. So we've done all of our work to get the first purchase. But a lot of the time, somebody will try a product. We're probably all guilty of this. Even if we liked it, we don't necessarily come back and buy it a second time. So now it's our job to make sure we get a second purchase. Now, as we're getting those second purchases, we'll start to get customers who really do like the product, but they always purchase one at a time. So now the next goal is, how can we stack the products, bundle the products in a way that gets them to purchase more at one time and increase that average order value? So when you get into product stacking like that, there's a lot of strategy that goes in there that's based on a lot of numbers on what's happening around it. But we just want to make sure that our average order value is higher than that customer acquisition cost that's coming in from the ads. And we're going to build on that. And we've got this customer, maybe they bought twice or three times. Now they're going to buy a bundle. Now we start to really understand over time how that flow works and how much that customer is worth in the long run. So if we say, this customer spends $25 on every order, and on average they buy from us 4 times, that customer is worth $100. So now we're not chasing a $25 sale, we're chasing a $100 sale. And knowing that, we can go, okay, so if we're not worried about just the $25 one-time front-end first purchase, let's cut that in half and make it, what would that be? $12.50 off your first order if you subscribe. So now we go back to our email list and we hit that segmented list of people that have already purchased our product, and we offer them a subscribe and save exclusive offer. Subscribe and save with us. Your first bottle is $12.50, or maybe we just say $12. Right? And then we get them onto subscription. Once they're on subscription, usually they'll stick around for a while, because, to be quite honest, even if you have the intent, I'm actually going through this with the subscription I'm on right now. I do like the product that I'm taking. It's pretty darn expensive though. And every month I get it in the mail and I go, damn it, I forgot to cancel that subscription. I just spent another $80. So once they get on subscription, they'll usually be on there for quite a bit of time. And then once you know that number, now you go, okay, now our customer lifetime value has exploded. And we know that with this offer, we get X amount % of these people will convert, right? So now we can go back and go, hey, let's run. Now that's like directing the deals. So we're going to run a Black Friday offer, and we know that we can be profitable by doing a Black Friday offer for $5 a bottle. because we know what our customer lifetime value is high enough. We know what our conversion rates to that subscribe and save are. We know how we're going to get them through a first purchase, second purchase, third purchase, bundle purchase. You know what I mean? So I think that's how a lot of new brands are like, we don't understand how we can compete with these guys. They sell $5 on Black Friday and they got deals for $12 a bottle. Our overheads are too high. We can't compete with that. Well, it's just knowing their numbers over time and engineering a great deal.
Yeah, I love this. For you personally, motivation, inspiration, role models, parents, whatever it is, who truly have helped guide you, maybe given you inspiration, maybe been models of entrepreneurism because you started so young? Where did sort of
Yeah.
this come from? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about those influences in your life.
So one of the biggest influences that I ever had in my life is probably, and this isn't somebody I know personally, but Jay Abraham. So when I started my career, I just really studied him. I followed him. I read his books. I watched every video I could read. I took a course that wasn't by him, but it was one that he recommended on how to create a unique selling proposition. That course, it was about 6 months long. It just opened my eyes on how to really differentiate a product. Another guy that helped me actually build my business is Grant Cardone. Now, he's not somebody that's for everyone. Do you know who he is? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that 10X method, I actually was super. I read that book right before I launched my agency, and it was really helping me excel in sales at the station that I was at. I was actually the number one sales rep in the state for new business when I left to start my agency. And it was because I was working off of that 10X mindset that I had learned from that book. And, he's got a lot of good things. You got to take them with a grain of salt, like a lot of guys out there that are sales guys and sales trainers. But I took the good out of that and ran with it. And then a book that I read, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That book really changed my life and my mentality. So I would say those are probably the top three. But as far as like marketing, Jay Abraham. I mean, Jay Abraham is just the king at the stuff that I'm talking about right here. Now, when it comes to all the like customer acquisition, AOV, LTV, all this stuff I've been talking, I mean, that's stuff that I've just learned over the years of actually being in the trenches doing this stuff and working with brands at every level. I had some brands in the beginning or that I worked with in the beginning of their launch that are really large brands now that you would definitely recognize. I was hired by brands that were kind of in like already established, but looking to break through walls and scale up. So I got exposure to some really, really good entrepreneurs. And I learned quickly that, aside from marketing and telling a story, which is really important, most supplement brands don't have like a traffic problem. They have a math problem. Like they don't understand all that math that I just mapped out. And I'm no math genius. I just kind of learned over time that we needed to understand these numbers in order to get profitable and scale up.
That's one of these things that I think that I particularly like about this or this episode or you as a human to be straightforward is your ability to compound other people or give your gift to help other people succeed. That's what I'll use. I mean, compounding as in exponentially their potential. You know, do you see this as part of what you're doing? I mean, you wrote a book, you're obviously trying to give back to the world, but there's this thing that you're doing where we all need help. We all need a team, no matter where any great story, whether it's the Knights of the Round Table, we talk about the 12 apostles, they're all teams in some sense of the word, good sports teams. But, these great ones, the great ones we talk about are being lifted up by something or have something that is helping trigger them all to be greater. We're talking a little bit about this in your skill set, in your business that you've developed. There's a little bit of having the skills necessary perform a particular task that not many people have, but it also has exponential benefit to those who are willing to use it and let it help them grow their potential, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the bigger purpose for me, is family, and my wife has been behind me through this whole journey. I met her not long after my son was born. I guess when he was 2, his mom and I just didn't work out. And I actually was performing locally here and I met the girl that's now my wife. But anyways, when I launched this company, I went to her and said, listen, I think this is what I want to do. I'm going to leave the station. And I had a great job and we were secure and we had a really nice house and we actually had just had our daughter. I said, I'm going to leave the station. I'm going to start this agency. I'm going to cash in my 401k. And I pretty much sold her on it. She said, I'm willing to do it and support you through it, but you have to promise me that you'll stay committed to it for 5 years. Because I had told her, it takes about 5 years to establish a company. So it's going to be a fight. We had the mindset of this is going to be a fight for 5 years. And there were some times when I wanted to get out. It got too hard. I mean, I had a business partner early on who left unexpectedly and left me holding the bag. I had many nights of not getting any sleep because payroll was going to be due on Friday and I didn't have it in the bank and I had to come up with a way to get payroll in the bank by Friday. I mean, I had years and years of stress, taking bad loans to limp through, just selling to try to get more clients to pay my growing staff. And I wasn't really making money. And just a couple years ago, it finally popped and just really took off for us. But she has been just a rock behind me through all this. Also, God, without him, I mean, this is not this stuff that I'm doing is not me. It's really him behind me. I always have to give my glory to God. And I'm definitely a spiritual guy. I'm a Christian guy. I'm probably not the best Christian on the planet, but I try. And yeah, that's really the driving force behind me. I also have 2 boys. I have 2 boys, 2 girls. I know they're all watching me, especially my boys at the age that they're at right now. And I want to make sure that I'm setting the right example for them. And so, yeah, that's what keeps me going.
Love it. Where can they find you online? Where can they find your business? If someone's in this space or in food and beverage space, because they are very similar and wants to reach out to you, wants to learn more about what you might be able to do for them or how your superpower might complement their superpower, how do they do that?
Yeah. Yeah. The best thing you can do is go to nutramarketers.com. You can book a call with me there right on my calendar. You can also email me at jsmiddy@nutramarketers.com. You can feel more than free to search me up on LinkedIn, John Smitty. And if you message me there, I may message you back, but it'll probably be some time because I don't check it nearly as much as I should. And then if you're interested in the book, you can find that on Amazon. It's called Stop Guessing, Start Marketing. Sorry. And I think the Kindle version of that is actually free on Amazon. So you can actually download it for free. But if you want the hard copy or the paperback, you have to purchase that. I think it's about $14 currently.
Love it. Anything you want to talk about that I didn't talk about or anything that you want to mention to the audience that maybe I didn't mention or bring up?
I don't think so, Justin. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed talking with you. Love your show. I'm going to continue listening.
I
And
appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. Hope I can come on again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you back on, and you can sign up anytime you want. Anytime you want to talk, I can talk about anything. Just ask anyone. I love information. I read a lot. I'm always absorbing. I can talk about anything, anytime. So if you want to come back on, it's always an open invitation for sure. I would love it.
Appreciate it.
And I
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
you and your time. And I actually really appreciate what you're doing for the world because I think it's so huge to have someone that understands something that most businesses, restaurants, entrepreneurs, anyone, it becomes a hurdle that no one ever crosses over, because it is a scary thing and it is very hard to succeed at, because you just need someone to ask the right questions and help structure it into processes or procedures that make sense, or standard operating procedures, what we used to call them in our business. But having an outsider business come in and do it for you, things that you're not good at. Listen, if you're producing food, you're probably not going to be great at marketing and advertising. Just saying, you're going to have to
Yep.
find someone, you're going to have to get to a point where you're wanting to take on a certain amount of percentage of your revenue to dedicate to that. And you want to find the right partners to do that as well. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you're doing. Everyone in the audience, I love you guys. Thank you for listening in. Remember, the entrepreneurs, they come on here, they share their stories. They're here to educate, grow the world. That's why they come on here. So that your tuition for your education is just to like, share, comment their stories, help these entrepreneurs get their story out there, also help others benefit from these stories. That's the goal. That's why we do it. That's why I don't take on sponsors. That's why I don't allow anyone to tell us any direction. And we do it the way that we do here at Better with Bacon Vet Studios, because we want the freedom to be able to tell the entrepreneur story, and we want to be able to tell it in a way that can go all across the globe, because entrepreneurism is freedom, guys. Okay. It is the foundation of freedom. It is the foundation of rebellion. It is the foundation of freeing ourselves from things that constrain us. When we have entrepreneurism, and it's existed forever, whether it's shops or bakeries or hotels or inns or whatever you can think of, someone's been offering some sort of business or service that maybe grows at some period of time in history. East-West trading companies would be examples that they grew into massive corporations from Netherlands. But all I'm saying is we don't know. We don't know who we're going to influence. We don't know how it's going to impact them, but all we can do is our part and share it. Okay. Even if it's just passing along, even if it's just sharing a good story about an entrepreneur, little information, little bits and pieces help us along our journey to grow into big things. I talked to you about how little seeds in the journey, from a musician to a copywriter to a marketer and advertiser to the radio show, all of these things align. They were little seeds. They had to be grown. They just didn't start off this way in the story. The reason we go all the way back to Little John is so I can show you guys that entrepreneurs aren't by accident. Okay. There is a purpose driven in all of us, and it's grit. We talked about it in another episode. But grit is the common factor for one reason, because the ability to constantly be knocked down, to constantly be broken down by even the malevolent, and put yourself back together allows you to start over many, many times in different things sometimes, and sometimes those different things align to something greater over time, period. And if you have the courage, and you have the support system, and you have the mentors, and you have the right people you're surrounding yourself with, the right entrepreneurs, the right groups, the right people. Maybe it's the right sports team for your kids that help inspire the parents as well as the kids. That's a good sports teams, guys. Not ones that just work on the kids, the ones that care about the whole family, not the family just paying the paycheck. Just saying. So that is where I'm going to end it for everyone, because I get a lot of questions now that I talk about coaching soccer. Now that I've seen the systems, now that I understand what it is, yes, every business needs to make money. But at the same time, every business is also responsible for the world that we are living in, or that helps that business, or is with that business. So we have to uplift the world, the humans, the people around us, the time we have with them. More people spend time at work than they do with their spouse in many cases. Not great statistics there. We're only working 40 hours a week. Just saying. But what are we doing? What are we doing for those we influence when we're at work, or with our businesses, or with our restaurants, or with our food product? Because at the end of the day, no matter what, no matter how much money, yes, we need to profit. We need to grow so we can keep growing and keep benefiting, creating jobs, keep helping families put their kids through college. Big deal. But also we need to understand what is the legacy that we're going to leave behind. And those businesses that understand it, the Guinnesses of the world, the Wells Fargos of the world in some ways, maybe not as much as they used to, but they have a legacy behind them because they understand these things. Some of these companies like Mars, even though they're family protected, we've talked about them on the podcast before. They build things, they do things, they uplift, they have higher goals, they have higher values that are also uplifting, not just delivering a profit and not just doing well for their employees or their community. It's a higher purpose. When we anchor that and we understand it's compounded and that higher purpose comes from years upon years of hardship, pushing yourself through it, training, always knowing that you've got to be ready for whatever opportunity is ready for you. Okay. You know, and this is why training, why being in discipline, why things like 75 Hard help get us there. Because in those things, in those disciplines, or going to the gym or playing a sport, by the nature of training, practicing, having to do it on your own, you instill a thing in your brain that becomes a pattern, that becomes part of who we are, our identity, that we are going to constantly be improving. We are constantly be training. We are constantly going to be motioning ourselves towards whatever our goals are. And our process, we are constantly growing ourselves. That capacity to grow ourselves is huge. And we just talked about it on this podcast. That's where I'm going to leave it for everyone. John, do you have anything based on what I just said that you want to comment on?
Yeah, I mean, for those guys that are out there pushing their own companies and trying to grow, my biggest piece of advice always, and it sounds kind of cliche to say because everybody says it, but it's just keep pushing forward and don't give up. It took me about 8 years of just sheer push and struggle before it finally started paying off for me. And now it'll be my 11th year in February. And man, I look back at those times where I was just ready to throw in the towel. One of those times when my wife said, 5 years, you said 5 years, and I just wanted to throw in the towel. And I'm so glad I didn't throw in the towel and just go get a job where I'd probably be at today. I would probably be not utilizing my skill to its fullest capacity. And I'm pretty positive I would be miserable and unhappy. So keep fighting the good fight.
Love it. Thank you guys. I love you guys. I appreciate you. And we're out.